Hi, welcome back. In this video, we're going to learn how to do nested loops in Python. We looked at while loops and then we looked at for loops. Nested loops aren't a new type of loop. Nested loops just means that there are multiple levels of loops involved. It could be either one for or multiple for loops within a for loop, right? Or multiple while loops within a while loop. When you have more than one loop involved, that's when you call it as a nested loop. Let's see an example of it to see why something like that would be useful. Let's go back to the IDE. I'm going to create a new file and save it as nested loop.py. And let's say we have a list that contains all names, right? John, Kevin, Laura, Patrick. So let's just say there's a list called names with 4 names in it, and I want to display every name in the console. As you can remember from the for loop example, you can do something like for name in names. So for each name variable in names list, print the name. I'm going to save it and run it. And we got the 4 names displayed. Pretty simple, right? So we just have one level of loop involved here. Now what if I want to display every single character in these names as well? So I just want to display J, then O, then H, then N, then K. So now we're talking about not just displaying each value or each string in the list, but also each character within the string. So we're talking about more than one level. How we can do that? This is where nested loops come in handy. So the first loop could be to just go through the names, like the one we have here, but the next loop could be to go through the individual characters. We'll just see an example of it, then you would be able to fully understand. So I'm going to print something to separate this previous output from the next one. So in the first output, we saw the names. In the next, we're going to try to display the individual characters. So let's do the same loop first. For each name in names, we're going to do for each character in name. So in the first for, we're going to go through the names list, but in the next for, we're going to go through each string that's picked from the list. Now we can say something like print char. Let's run it to see what happens. I'm going to scroll all the way up. So we got the first output. This is the first for loop here with all the 4 names. And then we got the separator printed out. This is just for easily seeing the 2 different outputs, right? So we don't get confused. So this is where our recent example starts. As you can see, we got John, and then Kevin is Kevin until Patrick is individually spelled out. So we create a nested loop, which is just multi-level loop. Here we have 2 levels. In the first level, we go through the names, and in the second level, we are going through each character in each name. As you can see, using a nested loop that has just 3 statements, we were able to do something like so complex. Otherwise, we would have to do multiple statements to just go through each character if we don't do a loop, right? But here, using a nested loop, we were easily able to accomplish what we wanted to do, which is basically going multiple levels down. That's where nested loops are used. Again, it's totally based on what you're trying to do when you're programming. If you have a scenario and you think about it as more than one level, that's when you would think about how you can use a nested loop to accomplish that. I hope you were able to understand when a nested loop would be applicable. Again, I highly encourage you to run this example as well as take some other examples with integer lists or anything, right? And try to go multiple levels down and see how nested loops behave. And just before we finish this, I wanted to talk about the break and continue keywords that we saw in the previous example, in the for loop examples. Break and continue can also be used here, where at any point, if you want to break out of one of these loops, you can use a break statement, right? So when you use a break keyword, let's say in the second level loop, it will break out of this completely. Or if you do continue, it'll just go to the top of the loop again. So break and continue can be used in nested loop also, where you can basically control which parts of the loop you want to execute and which part you don't want to execute. I just wanted to state that break and continue can also be used in conjunction to a nested loop. Again, use those examples also to make sure you are very familiar with both the nested loops and the usage of break and continue in these scenarios. Thanks again. See you in the next video.